Hawgs Illustrated. Still with Hawgs Illustrated. Can I still say you're with Hawgs Illustrated, Clay?
That's
I used
fine.
to say
I'm going to keep
publisher and
writing
editor
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. You can say founder.
That's better. That's better.
I don't know what to say. Ty's been saying Becca and Sarah's dad. That's his introduction. I could be Jean Ann's husband. I was always Orville's son. so you could say that.
I could call you accomplished ceremony of first pitcher. Gravity works, though. Clay, you threw a strike. That's all that mattered. You didn't bounce it, and it looked good.
I mean, if I had scooted back 3 more feet, it would have bounced because that was all I had.
How nervous were you walking out there?
You know, I was nervous going down through the stands and walking out on the field, but right before I went out, something weird happened, and I was just like focused. So I don't think there were nerves. I was just doing my job. Go out there, execute one chunk, because it really wasn't a pitch; it was just a chunk.
Well, you said in your most recent column, you said you threw the ball as hard as you could. So how did you feel the next day? Because if you throw as hard as you can, and you haven't thrown for a long time, I know what that feels like.
It was. I didn't really have any pain or anything. I don't have a great shoulder. I hurt it when I was playing Legion ball right at the end, and I've always had a little trouble, with like throwing a football. I mean, I just don't have any strength in that shoulder. So no, there's no. Let's just put it this way: one throw is enough. If I have any more throws, I'm going to need an NIL deal with a shoulder specialist before I would attempt. I want to make sure I have protection to get it fixed.
Well, we're going to heads up to all of the salespeople at ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com. We're going to need an official orthopedics and sports medicine provider.
That's right.
Just like the Razorbacks do. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, mine's Mark Powell. He's fixed my knees, so he's a shoulder guy. So that's who I would partner up with probably. And hey, he'd probably do it because we fly fish together. So I mean, it would be something that he would get something out of it. Like, okay, Clay's going to tie me some flies. We'll trade some shoulder help. Man, I don't want a rotator cuff surgery. One of my friends, Lewis Campbell, just went through the rehab of that. Of course, we saw Coach Musselman. It was obvious what he was going through. But I don't want to check and see if I have any rotator cuff damage. Hey, it was a fun night, and I'm very aware of what that setting is. There's nothing like it anywhere. And Norm DeBryan and Dave Van Horn and all their coaches, going back through Norm's time with Dave Jorn and Todd Butler and Wes Johnson and I'm going to leave out somebody, but man, they've done a great job. I mean, it's to the point where if they just don't roll everybody, people think something's wrong. In baseball, I mean, what have they won? 34 games, but hey, we're focusing on an offense that's scuffling a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, the offense has been scuffling. I mean, because even though you won the series against Ole Miss, you only scored 12 runs in 3 games. All 12 came off of home runs. Didn't hit very well with runners in scoring position. Didn't have the timely hits. I mean, you had the timely hit, obviously, with the walk-off home run on Saturday, but not as many timely hits as you would like. And Clay, the kind of up and down feeling with this team, and especially when you look at fans' reactions and kind of how the masses are feeling, it does it have to do with the fact that this team is constantly being compared to great Razorback teams of the past? I mean, at least it's being compared to last year's team. Yeah,
but Drew, it wouldn't matter. I can take you back to the middle of Omaha runs where people questioned the offense, and it was a time when they really loaded up on pitching scholarships because the baseball was dead, the bats were dead, so that was the ticket. So anytime if the pitching struggling, but what I will tell you is the expectations for Arkansas baseball are huge. It is a monster that you have to feed, and I've seen that with other programs. Track, for instance. There were times where John McDonald, they struggled a little bit, and he said he'd been focused too much on building that indoor track center and didn't really recruit well for a year or something. And people were, well, what's wrong? Well, sometimes when you finish second, that's not all bad, but it's not what the expectations were. And expectations are that they're going to knock the baseball around, and they're going to pitch well, they're going to defend well, and they're going to be a juggernaut. Mm-hmm. And it's just a hard game. And baseball has always been like this. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And it is, players evolve during a year. They struggle, and then they find it. Then they struggle, and sometimes they all struggle at the same time when you're talking about hitting. And then they all get it going, and rarely is it the same time, but it's usually enough that but right now they have really struggled in midweek, and I think it's adjusting to more off speed. In the SEC field, don't you see a lot of the 95 stuff, and they seem to handle that better.
I think they're more comfortable hitting against fastballs like that. But what I've seen is pitchers right now have Arkansas batters, as Bubba calls it, in between speeds. Late on the fastball, early on a change or a breaking ball. But here's my thing about this. Like the offensively, they might be struggling right now, but the fact of the matter is, you score 4 runs at home, you're probably going to win games. And right now, you're in position to continue playing at home. On the road, Hagen Smith hasn't been very good. Jackson Wiggins has struggled a bit on the road. At home, things have been much different for Hagen Smith. And this team has lost only 5 home games. I think 4 runs is enough at home. It's really all a matter of just how you outscore the opponent, and Arkansas is doing it more often than not.
Yeah, and you can get focused on that offense and forget that some of those same guys are unbelievably good in the field. Robert Moore, he might be in a hitting slump, but he saves runs every game. Defense,
no doubt.
They have turned some double plays. Phil, it's just incredible to watch. Some of the off balance, the flips. Like they get it. I mean, both he and Jalen Battles, they have to be the best double play combination ever to play. In that stadium. I can't, I don't go all the way back, George Cole Field. I can't tell you all those combinations of double play because I didn't cover baseball all those years. But from the time they've been in this stadium, there has never been a defensive combination that has the range, the arms, the ability, the slickness. And so Robert Moore, he's not leaving the lineup. He'll get it going at some point, but his defense is just, those pitchers, they want to hug him sometimes, I know.
And it's difficult to put a number on how many runs your gloves save you. You can look at somebody's statistics offensively and know, well, this guy equals this many home runs, this many RBIs, this is what he's slugging, so on and so forth. Fielding percentage doesn't tell you the value of what these guys are for the team.
Those double plays.
You look at the double plays, you look at the team ERA, and you just know that this Arkansas team earned run average would be quite a bit higher than it is right now if you did not have the great second baseman, the great shortstop, and I also think Braden Webb
no unearned runs. No.
That's right. 877-377-6963. If you've got any questions for Clay, you can call or text, and we'll wrap up the first hour right after this. And Clay Henry, founder of Hawgs Illustrated. I think I've remembered to say these things properly now after your retirement.
It doesn't really matter. You don't even have to.
Would you say your name and leave it at that? I can do that.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Did you mentor whomever it is that's going to take over your role as editor and publisher? Ryan Tannehill says he's not mentoring Malik Willis.
I think that I understand that NFL deal, and it's the same thing in Major League Baseball. You can learn by watching, and you can ask questions, but those guys are trying to earn a paycheck, and they've got a really short window. But to answer your question, they haven't named a replacement. I think they're in the process of doing that. So they've part of my terms, my resignation terms, I gave them some time that I could be an advisor, but they'll have to pay for that. And I'm not sure they want to. I'm joking.
I guess in this situation, it all doesn't matter. Like, what is it that the word mentoring means in this case? Because mentoring can be, just like you say, leading by example, just by being somebody that does your job properly, so that, you know, if Ryan Tannehill goes through camp the right way, shows up in shape, and handles his work the way that he's expected to, Malik Willis is watching that, and that's sort of like mentoring. Or there can be other sort of mentoring in which, I mean, you saw this recently with Ronald Acuna Jr. Talking about when he first came up to the Braves, that Freddie Freeman tried to tell him about how things are expected to be with him there. This is how you act. You know, not let you don't do this, you do that. And he didn't appreciate it very much.
He did not. He didn't take it very well. Like that's the thing. I think when it comes to sports, and, you know, when we hear the word mentoring, we kind of think about it in our own careers. You know, like, I know that I had a mentor throughout this business, and that was Brett Norsworthy. I mean, he did so much for my career, not only just teaching me the right way to do stuff, but also making connections and everything like that. Brett is my mentor in this business. And Brett went above and beyond. But in sports, basically just being a nice person, I think, to your backup or to the young guy can be looked at as mentoring. Basically being, as long as you're not anti that guy, I think most people are okay with it.
Clay, it sounds to me like I think Tannehill's saying, I'm just not going to hold his hand. I'm not going to hold his hand and bring him along.
Yeah, I would have not even asked him that. I think that's and it's a kind of a little dangerous game, you know, that the media plays with guys. Are you helping that guy? Well, what's the right answer to that? No, he's trying to get my job, or yes, and you're not telling the truth. So I give Ryan credit. He told the truth. It's like, man, you know, and I think once he's done, that's when he would help. You know what they call that? That's being an assistant coach. There are guys that they've got that in the NFL. They've got mentors. So they are called coaches. And just to kind of go back to the original question, you know, like Matt Jones and Scotty Bordelon, you know, on our staff, they've known for, you know, the last how many ever years, you know, that I'm going to help them. You know, I'm going to, you know, when I read their copy, I'm going to tell them, you know, hey, you know, you're missing this. Maybe you need another source. And I might have done that early on, but I don't have to do it anymore because they're really good. And, you know, and I'm sure they've watched me do things, and they've probably picked out some things. Boy, Clay's not very good at this, but I really like the way he does that. And that's what you do as a young player. You look and you try to figure out, you know, what's working. And, you know, one of the things that's really interesting is you hear on the PGA Tour guys that will mentor other players, like Tiger mentors Justin Thomas. But there's a fine line in all of that because they're playing against them. You know, they're going out and competing. So, you know, I know Ray Floyd told me he didn't tell anybody anything. I mean, he did not talk to the young players. And there's a lot like that. Jack Nicklaus didn't do that. But, you know, they are trying. And Tiger, to his credit, has done that more of late. But he was, you know, Mr. Stoic. I'm not talking to people in the locker room for a long time. He's just beating their brains in and smiling about it. So that's an interesting game, and you know, it's not like a pitching staff where, okay, we need two more pitchers. We need these young guys to come through. We need, you know, let's, you know, with Glavine and Smoltz and those guys, I think they were really mentoring a lot of young pitchers in their last 4 or 5 years.
And Clay, one guy that, you know, to kind of bring it back to Razorback news and things going on around the University of Arkansas, one guy that could be viewed as possibly that mentor to young guys, next year would be a guy like Jalen Williams. If he decides to come back, he's been invited to the NBA Combine. I think only 60 to 70 players get invited to the Combine. So if you get invited, it's almost you're definitely looked at as as a draft pick talent. Do you think that the invite has swayed his decision one way or the other? Do you think that is kind of just is another example or kind of showing that he's going to stay in the draft?
No, I think that what it is he's looking for that feedback. I think Jalen's really smart. I mean, when you watch him play, it is obvious that his ability to process information and decide what he's going to use, what he's not going to use, how he's going to play the game, and how he's going to attack or defend his opponent. And, he moves his feet, but he knows and anticipates. So, I mean, that's evidence to me of knowledge and IQ, and I think he will really take that feedback and process it in the right way. So I think that he's probably still taking that feedback and making his decision, because I think he's really smart.
Yeah, I mean, he is really smart. He's the kind of player that you'd want the young guys to learn from, too.
And they will, yeah. And it's he will still be around. Those, but yeah, I think that he probably would be somebody that they could really benefit in that way, not just as his play, but as his mentoring. But you got to remember, a lot of these guys that are coming in here, they're as old as he is. These transfers, they're they're the twins that are coming. They're really experienced. It's that's the concept that we don't really get, that there will be experience on this team. It just will be new experience, and it won't be SEC experience, but it'll be Division I. A lot of games played. So I don't think it's like, hey, they're not going to have somebody that can mentor the freshmen. They're going to have some older players that, I mean, just remember what kind of mentor Jalen Tate was. Gosh. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's just here 1 year. So don't think, well, okay, there's not going to be somebody, because there will be, and they'll emerge. And it'll take them a little while because they're learning terminology and things.
Well, to bring it back to basketball and your first pitches as we wrap things up here, Muss threw out the ceremonial first pitch on Sunday's game, the day after you did. You guys turned things around. I figure, like, we could reserve you guys for a big ceremonial first pitch. I know we don't do those in the postseason, but like the Yankees would trot out Yogi Berra for first pitches in the postseason when they needed some extra mojo. I think you and Muss, back-to-back days, you could do the same thing for the Hogs.
Well, that was a one-time thing. You don't do first pitches.
No, you've got to reserve. We've got to reserve you for. You got to be in the bullpen. You're now a relief first pitcher.
That I got a call from a friend in the media in Tulsa, and he says, I'm glad I didn't talk to you before you did your first pitch. And I was like, why? And he says, well, there was a news anchor that did a first pitch at a Tulsa Drillers game, and it came out of his hand sideways and went towards the dugout, and it went viral, and he left the business. Oh. He's an actor now.
Because of that?
Because of that. It just went viral, and it was an embarrassment. I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't know any of that stuff.
Well, I guess he wouldn't. But I mean, we know one role he's not going to get in whatever play or movie he's starring in. It's definitely not going to be pitcher.
It's not going to be baseball.
Owners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.